Hello, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. So excited to have you today. We're going to, wait for just about 30 seconds to let folks trickle in from that waiting room, but you are in the right place. We are so excited to have you here. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful, at least where I am, Wednesday. I hope it's beautiful near you as well. And we will be sure to, we're gonna go ahead and, um, all righty. Thank you so much. Okay, we have a good amount of folks who are in here from that waiting room, so let's go ahead and get started. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here today. My name is Brinton Botkin on the Handshake team. I use she, her pronouns, and I am so excited to welcome you to our event. I do want to start us off with a couple of quick notes just for some level setting before we get started with our panel. We're going to have about 25 minutes of planned discussion, and we'll save about 10 minutes at the end of the discussion today for questions from you, the audience. There is a Q&A box down at the bottom of your screen that you can go ahead and take a look at and add any questions over the course of this session. So please drop those in there. We'll do our best to answer those before we end today. We are already getting some questions, which is very exciting. And we will also, just a heads up, we're going to be recording this session and we will be emailing it to you and putting it on the Handshake blog tomorrow morning. So don't worry if you miss something. It's good to take notes, but you don't have to. We will be sharing out the recording later so you can refer back. With that housekeeping out of the way, I am going to stop my screen share so that I can look at my panelists and take a nice gander as we get started here. Awesome. So I have to say, in my role here at Handshake in the student marketing organization, I do a lot of Handshake events. I talk to a lot of students, and one of the most frequently asked questions that I receive is, I want to land a job in XYZ industry, but I've never worked in it. I've never had a job before. I don't know what to do. What should I put on my resume? What can I do to help myself stand out in the application process before I've built that professional experience? And so that's why I'm so excited to be here today with IBM to talk about building skills, which is one of the most powerful things that you can do to stand out in that job search before you get the work experience, to demonstrate your real world skills that you've mastered through certifications and projects. So with that, super, super excited to have our panelists here today. Can you guys take a quick minute to introduce yourselves, maybe give a quick overview of your background and what you're doing today? And I will go in alphabetical order. James, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about
Sounds
yourself.
good. Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm James Whitfield. I am a software engineer, really just overall computer nerd from Cincinnati, Ohio. Recent graduate of Parkland University and Georgia Tech, so I moved down south for college. Graduated through their dual degree engineering program. So I did computer engineering at Georgia Tech and computer science over at Parkland University, and now planning for graduate school later this year in the fall. So in between those two, I actually do research work at Clark. So I came back to Clark. We're doing a lot of research on virtual reality, things like renewable energy. What is it? Really just anything software related, web app, mobile app, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, a lot of nerdy stuff going on. Planning to continue that in the graduate school with a master's in computer engineering. But most recently, actually, through the IBM SkillsBuild program and kind of the opportunities IBM has given to me, I was able to secure an internship for this summer. Very, very excited about that. I'll be going to New York City and working with them on their Z systems, some of their computer hardware they got going on in the New York City area. So yeah, I'll stop there. Excited to be here. Thank you all for joining the call today.
Amazing. Congratulations on that internship. What a great summer you have ahead of you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Trey, can you introduce yourself, give a little bit of background on you and what you're up to today?
Yeah. So Andrew Trevino, but as you can see, I go by Trey, kind of shortening of my last name. I am a recruiter, career-long recruiter, been doing this for about 12 years now. Currently at Handshake, I hire for our sales and marketing teams mostly, but throughout the course of my career, touched a little bit of everything. Done data science, done software engineers, done HR, done operations, kind of had an opportunity to work across a variety of different departments. Also really excited to be here. I think this is something that's very near and dear to my heart. I'm the first person in my family and extended family to work in corporate America, really come from like a long line of government workers, small business owners, teachers. I graduated from UC Berkeley. I'm kind of dating myself here. Back in 2013, before Handshake actually existed. And I got my degree in political science, thought I was going to work in politics. All of my internships were in politics. And after graduation, kind of realized that that wasn't quite in the cards for me for a variety of reasons. And so I had to figure out what the heck I was going to do without anyone to really lean on, without a resource like Handshake to be able to leverage. It took me a while, if I'm being honest. I went through probably submitted more than 1,000 applications, probably went through like 50 different interviews. Took me a while to really kind of find my groove before ultimately ending up in recruiting. And so I think to kind of be here today and chatting with all you, I think if I can use my experience to kind of help you guys learn from it and make that transition a little bit more effectively, like something that's really meaningful, something I'm really passionate about. So thanks to everyone for joining us today.
Thank you so much. And I have to say, graduating in 2013 does not make you old, because that would be an attack on me as well. So let's move on. Awesome. So let's start by talking about the why here. I know we're all here to talk about skills. Everyone in the audience today registered because they're wondering how on earth to develop their skills and leverage them in that job search when they don't have directly applicable job or internship under their belt yet. So let's spend some time talking about how skills can be a powerful asset to any applicant. And Trey, I will start with you. You mentioned that you're kind of a career-long recruiter, so that means you have tons of experience coaching students and candidates through their job search, and you've observed many, many, many hiring processes. So tell us, to land a job or internship, is it essential to have directly relevant work experience? And how would you advise students who've not yet held a role in their area of interest and might feel worried about stacking up against the competition?
Right. Yeah, definitely not required. I've even hired people 10, 15 years into their career that are making total career shifts that have come on board and then, not only been hired, but been really successful in that new function. So not required. I mean, it definitely is a mark in your favor. And so I think if you are kind of going through that type of a interview process, important to know that like the competition may have a leg up on you. So like, how might you bridge that gap? There's a couple of things that stand out. I would say first and foremost, like your online presence, make yourself discoverable, right? So make sure that you've got a Handshake profile that's up to date, valuable resource for you to leverage. Make sure that you're showcasing relevant coursework, internships, interests, even like extracurriculars. I know sometimes it may not seem that way, but those can be experiences that build really powerful skills for you. So, for example, I got my recruiting job, and the main thing I talked about in my interviews was being rush chair for my fraternity. My friends used to joke that I went from rush chair for our fraternity to rush chair for my company. So, like, it actually can be really helpful. I'd also say really make sure that you've got like tight interview responses. So the job description oftentimes is kind of like the answers to the test, right? They tell you exactly what they're looking for. So go through, take a look at like what the number one skills are and have 1 to 2 anecdotes that you can work through where you really talk about showcasing those skills. I'd also say pre-interview research. So I think it kind of goes undervalued, but the level of enthusiasm and passion that you have for the role and for the company can really be a big difference maker for you. So, it's one thing to say it that, yes, I'm excited about this. It's another thing to show that like, hey, I've been looking into your company. I've looked at, recent press releases or articles, things that I see that you're doing in the space, and being able to talk through that. I think it gives an added level of confidence to recruiters and the hiring managers. And then lastly, I think it goes without saying, given the context of our conversation today, but just continual learning and upskilling, right? There's a lot of resources out there that you can leverage to build those skills that don't have to come from a paid job, right? There's coursework, there's certifications, there's the SkillsBuild program, things that you could do that deepen your repertoire, showing that sort of lifelong learner growth mindset type of mentality is going to definitely put you in better position to make that transition.
Thank you so much, Trey. And I definitely, as somebody who's been a hiring manager myself, I will agree with all of those things, especially demonstrating that learner's mindset and adaptability and eagerness to continue to develop your skills. So with that, I want to pivot over to you, James. Can you share a little bit about your personal journey, maybe why you chose to participate in IBM SkillsBuild and how building skills through that program helped you stand out in your own job search?
Yeah, of course. So I kind of got lucky, to be honest. I was very active at school. So when opportunities came up in school, we had partnerships, things like that. My mentor, well, my professor at the time, currently mentor, make sure I'm active, make sure I know about what's going on. Skills Build just kind of happened to be one of them. IBM had a program at the time with HBCUs in general. I think they still have it going on, where they provide them with a bunch of different resources, different programs. And one of those programs was Skills Build. So it had a lot of advertisement on getting students on that program, making sure they're using it. Really, what it is I guess I can explain what Skills Build is for anyone who doesn't know the audience briefly too. So essentially, IBM will give students and young entrepreneurs, really anyone who needs skills, access to these courses. Usually 3 hour or so courses. You take it, you get a certificate or a badge. You can put on your LinkedIn, you can put on your resume, what have you. And there's a big push here at Clark to get students to do that as soon as possible. So we start like freshman level and going on onwards from there. But for me, since it was kind of just getting started, they were pushing 3 courses. The one that I ended up taking was for artificial intelligence. And then from there, I got involved with the ambassadors program. So I became an IBM ambassador. I got to meet the IBM team, Dr. McClendon, who on the call today. I talked to and worked with a lot. So thank you, Dr. McClendon, off the bat. But from there, I was able to get a few more badges through like trainings. They did specific training for AI, where I got taught to teach people basically AI. And then they opened it up. So they said, here's the Skills Build platform, find some new badges, find some new certificates. And for me, it was a few years ago, I think it was 2022 or 2023. For me at the time, I was trying to figure out how to get into the actual field that I wanted to be in. I wanted to do software, but I wasn't really in the field yet. I wanted to get the internships, wanted to get the opportunities to learn how to build the projects. So taking those classes helped me get like the base understanding of it. And of course, it's really helpful that it was free. You get a certificate you can display. So I think it's helped me a lot significantly. It's on my LinkedIn, it's on my resume. I put it on my website, it's everywhere. And I tell all the students to do the same thing. So I guess one point I wanted to get across with Skills Build today, though, like if for nothing else, hopefully I get this point across. There's kind of like a network of opportunities with the Skills Build. So the Skills Build is kind of like step one. You do your badges, you do your certificates, and then they have a few other programs you can use to kind of get your foot into the actual door, the employment, getting money, all that good stuff. So you'll go from getting the badge. They have a mentorship program where you'll get matched up directly with somebody at IBM. They'll kind of show you the path that you should take. They'll do resume reviews. They'll do mock interviews, whatever you need. And then from there, they have a internship program, a micro internship program. So students and again, young entrepreneurs can sign up, use their badges. You apply like with your badge. You'll apply for a job related to whatever you want to end up doing. So for me, I did AI software stuff. Uh, they'll accept you based on your badges, based on your experience, and then you get paid for that opportunity. So obviously, as a student finishing up my undergrad year, money was important to me as well as the experience. So I said, let me use these badges, make some money off of it. But yeah, there's a lot of opportunity there. I'm sure we'll talk about it a lot today. And yeah, I'll wrap up there. Thank you.
That's awesome. And I saw some questions already come through in the Q&A about how you landed your internship, any recommendations for landing an internship. So I'm gonna double tap the IBM Skills Build program. It sounds like there's a really great pathway into some awesome opportunities there. And I do have to say, to go off script a little bit, my primary question that I'm asked most often during these sessions is, what do I do until I have a job? What do I put on my resume? How do I demonstrate my skills? The second most popular question I would say is, how do I network? What is networking? What is a mentor? And because networking is this big, scary concept. So the idea that there's this kind of built-in mentorship program and network that you can leverage as a part of this program, I would say is just a really great opportunity for folks who might be intimidated by the big, hairy beast that is the concept of networking. So really cool opportunity. Okay, Now getting into some kind of specific skills, I want to ask this question to both of you. There are obviously a ton of evolving industry landscapes out there. I'm thinking especially of tech, my own industry, where it feels like every day is a new frontier when it comes to AI. And so I want to chat about what some of the most in-demand skills are across key industries and why those matter to employers. Maybe we'll start with you, Trey, since you have the recruiter's perspective here. I'd love to hear from you about skills that you're seeing that are really buzzy, maybe stuff that's applicable across multiple industries and stuff that might be relevant to one specifically.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that you already kind of stole my thunder a little bit when when you talk about AI. It's definitely becoming a bigger and bigger piece that I'm seeing. Though I'm doing more of like non-tech roles here at Handshake, I do have a lot of friends in my network that are recruiters for engineering departments elsewhere. There's some companies that are making AI literacy basically a core requirement for all hires in their tech department. So if you're thinking about like software engineering or data science, things along those lines, having some level of familiarity with how to leverage those solutions, I think is really critical. Even for non-tech roles, I would say that you should have some ability, like think through how can I use some of these chatbots like a chat GPT or like Claude from Anthropic to make my life easier, to drive more efficiency. I mean, I'll even use myself. Like there was a period where I was a little resistant to the idea of AI, right? How this is such a person-driven role, recruiting. So much of what I do is talking to people. How is AI going to make my life easier? And you'd be surprised, over the last like year or so, there's been a lot of ways that I've even leveraged it to help me build out questions that I want to answer candidates during interviews. So really whatever you can do to familiarize yourself there, there's a lot of online courses and resources that you can leverage. I would definitely recommend that. Kind of going hand in hand with that, strong data skills is becoming more and more important as we move towards this more technical world. The ability to kind of manipulate data, I see like SQL more and more commonly being a requirement or even like a preferred skill. So a way to set yourself apart. More generally speaking, like obviously we want to talk about like hard skills, but don't discount the importance of soft skills as well. I think it goes without saying, but like communication, that is oftentimes the number one skill that you need to get a job. You're going to be working like, especially in today's world where you've got so much that's happening over Zoom, over email, over Slack. It's, teams that are spread across disparate regions. Like the ability to not only articulate your thoughts, but like when you're talking with someone to understand what it is they're saying to you, like that is actually really, really valuable. And a lot of times, that might be the number one reason people get rejected from interviews is the communication just wasn't where we needed it to be. Um, I would say resourcefulness and efficiency. The tech world. I mean, I'm in tech, so maybe I'm a little bit biased here, but like it just like Brendan said, like it feels like the world just keeps taking these significant leaps forward, and we find ourselves in uncharted territory every year. And so you have to be able to figure out with the limited resources I've got, with the limited guidance that I've got from my team, how can I organize myself to achieve the outcome that they want. And then lastly, I would just say, like resilience and like hustle. I'm sure that you've all heard it that like people will say Gen Z doesn't want to work hard. And the truth is like I was reading an article the other day where they took newspaper articles from the last 100 years, and every single decade there was somebody complaining about how the new generation doesn't want to work. So like, it's not, don't worry, this isn't anything specific to you. I think this is going to be a problem like for the rest of time. Just knowing that, anything that you can do to demonstrate that like grit and hustle and willingness to put in the effort, I think that's gonna really serve you well, also.
Yes, if I had a dollar for every think piece about how my generation didn't want to work, I wouldn't be working right now.
Yep.
It would have been a self-fulfilling prophecy. Awesome. Thank you for that. James, do you have anything you want to add there? And I would also tack on, do you have any specific skills build courses that you would recommend, based on students' industry of interest or courses you think are relevant to everybody?
Yeah. So I guess to finish with the last one you made, Trey, I'm surrounded by students every day right now. I kind of like help mentor some of them. So I can tell you like for a fact, our generation is ready to work. They're consistently thinking of new things. It's very fun and it's very exciting for me to like be surrounded by. So Yeah, definitely a myth. To add on to the skills, you mentioned the two that I wanted to mention, AI and data, for sure, because of course you need the data to be able to run the AI. I think to add on to those two, I would say cybersecurity is very important as well. When you're implementing these things, you're building robots, chatbots, whatever it is. You need to be able to protect the data, then also the actual software, the application piece. So there's a whole different list of employment opportunities and terms and things to understand in that world as well. So definitely explore that: cybersecurity, data science, AI, kind of the three I would say are the most important. So to lead into the skills build, that platform, I think they're very aware of the need to focus on AI right now. So definitely those three. They have getting started courses for those three: the AI, cybersecurity, and data science, I believe it's called. And then basically once you finish those three, again, 3 hour courses, there are advanced ones that step further into those three, and they cover like the bases. They kind of assume you don't know anything about them, so it's a very good jumping off point. And then the advanced ones get into: here's some software you can use related to data science. Here's software you can use related to AI. This is how you train an AI model. This is how you can use it to code. This is how you can use it to do these things. So, yeah, there's a lot of really good modules specific to just technical skills. One thing that I'm glad you mentioned, Trey, is the soft skills are very, very important. And there are a lot of courses on SkillsBuild for those as well. So we're engineering school, engineering department here. So we do a lot of focus on design thinking. There are courses specifically on design thinking, taking like going from a concept, an idea in your head to actually be able to implement it, building out like a final product. So I think that's really important. I would recommend that one to pretty much anyone in any field, because when you're doing like really obviously like the technical fields, you have applications you want to build, you have, bridges that want to be built, things like that. But even in something where you're doing like soft skills in the daily, you run into a problem, you're mentally designing a solution for that problem. So you have to go through the design process kind of intuitively. And I think it helps you deal with that when the problems come up.
Love that. That sounds like such a good course. For my own thinking, selfishly, I'm like, oh, that sounds really interesting. Awesome. Well, now that we have covered the why of skill building, I want to get into the how. How you can take those skills that you've learned and then apply them to your job search process. So Trey, I'd love to hear from you from a recruiter's perspective. How can candidates effectively highlight their skills on their resume and professional profiles like Handshake? What's the best way to showcase what you know, and speak to the projects or credentials that solidify that in a hiring manager's mind?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, definitely first and foremost, I would say build out that handshake profile, right? Like there's a variety of different fields for you to kind of showcase what those skill sets and talents may be. Like skills, coursework, project work, languages you speak, certifications, organizations you're a part of. It's pretty well segmented out for you to kind of put all these things out there on display. The best thing that you can do is to really invest some time into making sure that that's built out, that is a great reflection of who you are. For a lot of recruiters, a lot of companies, like that's going to be their first impression of you, right? And you kind of need to pass that first filter to get on the phone with them, and then talk through it. So put in some time and effort there. The second piece would be that resume, right? Like obviously they're a little bit different. There's overlap there, but kind of the goals are different. I say think of your resume as your highlight reel. It doesn't need to contain everything that you've ever done, right? Think of the things that will catch a recruiter's attention, a hiring manager's attention, that will make them say, wow, this person seems really intriguing. Let's get them on the phone. Um, I'd recommend, framing your bullet points on the resume as kind of situation, action, result. Gives me a more holistic view, especially if it's like a team project that you were a part of. What did you specifically own out of that group? And if there's any way for you to to include a measurable impact, that's going to be the best as well. I mean, there's a lot of studies that show that if you've got numbers, that is going to be the first thing that catches someone's eye. So like, don't write out 150%, like literally the number is 150%. Put that there, like, and it's true. I see, shoot, at this stage in my career, I've probably looked at like over 200,000 resumes. And so like my eyes are pretty well trained to I can think of someone I saw the other day. They did something that it led to 113% lift in subscription conversions. And that was like, a wow, okay, I want to learn more about that. Let me have an interview. So putting that on your resume, making sure that you've got the certifications listed out, like those types of things are probably most impactful.
Thank you for that. And my editor brain says any number over 10, always use a numeral. But I will also say quantifying your impact, quantifying your skills is really important. So thank you for that. James, I will ask, do you have any firsthand examples of how you've communicated the skills that you've built using SkillsBuild before you landed your internship, before you've landed roles, and any advice that you would share from the audience from a job seeker perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of talked about it already, but building the skills and then displaying them, really just making it clear that you understand what the fields are, you understand what your skills that you gained are and where they're going to be applied. So I guess to give an example, I talked about the internship opportunities through SkillsBuild. Uh, they wanted specifically people with badges. So that's kind of an easy one-to-one because I had an AI badge. They looked at people with AI badges. I just happened to have the experience. But going into, I guess, the internship that I'll be doing this summer is another good example. Theirs is focused on, I mentioned Z systems, it's IBM specific like computer setup that they have. When you do the certificates, you do like a course for a specific thing like that. It's very attractive to somebody who's looking for a candidate who knows about that thing. So for Z system, for example, there is a course, I think there's actually a course on SkillsBuild for it, for Z systems and ZOS. I took I really just did like a deep dive on Wikipedia and spent like 2 days just discovering everything I could figure out. But showing that you understand what those things are before you go into it. Trey mentioned researching, going into the interview, that kind of thing. I think that's really important. Obviously, the soft skill is also very, very important. When you talk about things like communication, making sure that you understand what you did, how you did it, and you can communicate that clearly. Trey, you mentioned, I think you said the SAR. It's a star, but the star format for interviews and answering the questions very, very important. So there's a lot of like little, I think little things really add up quickly. And I guess to add on to that, really showing your personality with your experiences, showing that you are an asset to this company, you are bringing something new, some fresh ideas. Because I think the way that you solve a problem can be very different than how other people solve a problem. And bringing those together is really going to bring the best out of a company. So yeah, just making that very clear. Put it on display for sure. Have resumes. Uh, I like to say to make a website if you can. I think that's really cool. I think recruiters, at least for the ones that I've talked to, really like when you have a link on your resume that just shows even more of what you've done because you do have to limit yourself a little bit for that resume. So yeah, centralize your information, have a clear way for people to get to it, and then be able to communicate it. I would say.
I love that. And that kind of answers my next question. You talked about the star format. Sounds like that's a common theme for you both. But any final tips for how to demonstrate your skills in an interview or a networking scenario? Anything else you would add?
Yeah, I'd say like have an elevator pitch for yourself ready to go. And I recommend having a couple different versions of it, right? Like if you're at a networking event where there's 200 people and there's a line of 20 people trying to talk to this one leader or one recruiter, you probably want to have like a 30-second version of who you are ready to go. But when you're sitting down in an interview with the hiring manager, it's probably more like 2 minutes, right? So like have a couple of different versions that you've practiced that you can kind of sit and work through with them. And then the other thing is just kind of, once again, really building off this STAR framework. When you're in interviews, most of the time they're going to ask you behavioral questions, right? There's a very common understanding that the best way to predict future outcomes, future performance is based off of previous experience. And so they'll ask you, tell me about a time when, and then they're looking for a very specific story that highlights that question. So I think about stories that really put your skills on great display where you had to leverage them. Also have those at the ready. And that's kind of how you go in there and blow away the panel.
Yeah, I love that. And I will also say for the folks that are thinking about, oh my gosh, I really haven't had any work experience. This is like my first time applying for a role. Those star responses, you can leverage things like classwork. coursework, if you had a challenge that you were presented with in a class or a volunteering situation, for example, and you built a skill using SkillsBuild or in another course, and you applied that to solve the problem and you turned that into a favorable outcome or result, like that's a really viable thing to mention in an interview setting. So don't feel intimidated if you haven't landed that first job yet. You can still, create those examples from your lived experience and from those opportunities that you've provided for yourself by upskilling. Awesome. Okay, before we get to our Q&A, because we do have a ton of questions and I will preempt to everybody. We're not going to have time to get to every question, so I will try to choose the ones that are the most widely applicable, the common themes. But before we do that, let's spend a little bit of time on the do's and don'ts of skill building. So when it comes to actionable advice for the folks in the audience today who are on the call, Trey, are there any common mistakes that you see in the application process that you'd advise the audience to avoid, especially when it comes to presenting their new skills to employers?
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe one of the most common things I see is just like the resume. So I mentioned it before, like your resume shouldn't be a catch-all for everything that you've done, right? If I get a resume that is 2, 3, 4, 5 pages long, especially at the stage of your career that all of you are in, that tells me that like you don't really know how to be a concise communicator. You're not sure what to focus on. You're just throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks. And that doesn't really bode well for even like your performance during the interview process, right? So I would say think of it like that highlight reel, really hammer it down to one page. I think there's different perception around like whether a summary is necessary. I personally don't really think a summary is necessary. I don't really want to like that's what the interview is for, right? It's like take that answer and have that ready to go for the interview. But the resume is like I just want to know what you've done. So really kind of think about what's going to be most impactful for that recruiter, what's going to give you the best opportunity to get on the phone. And like I said, oftentimes that's going to be evident from the job description. That's kind of like your cheat sheet. So go back to that, reread it, and then, if it's a job you really want, like rework your resume for that. I'll also say that like ChatGPT is actually really helpful in this area. I'm in the tech industry, as you guys all know. The tech industry has been kind of a bumpy ride for the last couple of years. If you're not hiring, you don't really need recruiters. So I've kind of been wrong place, wrong time a few times these last few years. I kind of found myself unexpectedly in the job market. And one day I decided like I'm going to write 3 or 4 different versions of my resume. And then I went and I pulled 10 job descriptions for roles that I was interested in. And I kind of put them all in a ChatGPT and said, help me rewrite my resume in the way that's going to maximize my fit for these roles. And even for me as a recruiter, right? I've been doing this for 12 years. Like I said, I've looked at probably 200,000 plus resumes. I've hired over 1,000 people in my career. There were still adjustments. It was like, oh, actually, that does make more sense. That is a better way to frame this. So don't be afraid to leverage those tools that are out there to help you with this process. Other thing I would say is, especially when you're taking on a role where it's your first time doing it, like overconfidence is probably the worst thing that you can do. And it's a little bit subjective, but trying to find that balance point between confidence, hunger, and humility. There's been a lot of times where people are like, yeah, like they're great, but they just feel like they've got it already. And like, I need someone that's going to come in and have more of a learner's mindset, right? Like I'm willing to invest in them if they've got that ability to take feedback and grow and learn on the fly. And so being able to show that like, this is what I've got so far. I realize there's some gaps. Here's what I'm doing to improve upon it. Here are the courses that I've taken. Here's how I want to learn. That actually really ends up being a lot more appealing to decision makers, is like having that ability to self-reflect on yourself. So would definitely, invite you guys to consider ways that you can kind of convey that over the course of an interview process as well.
Yeah, it definitely seems like demonstrating that you're into skill building is a really important thing for demonstrating that learner's mindset. Okay, I want to ask one last question to you, James, before we get into that Q&A, because we do have quite a few questions. What advice would you give to students and recent grads who are just starting their skill building journey? And is there anything you wish learners knew before starting this process?
Yeah, so Trey actually kind of mentioned what I was going to talk about at the very end there. We talk about AI a lot in pretty much every meeting now, but I think that there's like a good and a bad to it. I think it's really good. It's a really good tool to do things, make things happen. I think there's a tendency, at least with like a lot of college students and freshmen and even like late high school, to kind of get the AI to do it all for you, especially in the skills build side of things. In terms of there's this thing I want to do, I'm going to ask the AI to do it for me. But it's really important to do what Trey was saying and have that learning mindset, but also make sure you're displaying that learning mindset. So using the AI to help you learn instead of having it do for you. The context I keep thinking of is because I do software so much. In software, it's really easy to just say, code me a website and use these libraries, use these 6 things that I want on there, and then it'll do it. It'll generate it, but you haven't learned anything. And I think when you go into that recruitment setting, if you're in that interview, and you could say, no, I made this website, I stepped through this process, this is the problems that I ran into, this is how I solved those problems, versus I was able to use ChatGPT to make my website. It's like there's a big difference there, I think. So it's really important to like want to learn and use these tools to learn rather than just using them to use them. If that makes sense. But on the skills build side specifically, I would say for me, I just didn't know how many options there were. I got introduced to the platform on the technical stuff, but there's so many soft skills. There's I mentioned it already, but there's courses for design thinking, there's courses for entrepreneurship, there's like legal courses. Uh, there's things for what's the one I'm taking right now? User experience. I've been doing web dev a lot recently, so like UX, UI design. So if you're doing that website, you can use these platforms to teach you how to do those things, have certificates, and also have your website, things like that. So there's so many options out there on the SkillsBuild platform, obviously other platforms as well. But just make sure you're taking in as much information as you can, really searching through all these things because you don't really know it's there until usually somebody tells you, but you can go and look for it yourself as well. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna get into the Q&A. I only know we only have 8 minutes. But James, there are a lot of different flavors of questions about skills build. So I'm hoping maybe I can just like throw a couple at you and have you give us a concise question so that we can get into some others. But folks are asking, one, is it free? Two, do I have to apply to do it? Is it, do I only do it if I have access to a specific university, or is anybody able to do it? And so can you kind of answer those questions for us?
Yeah, so at least from what I understand, it's completely free. You can go to the website right now and sign up. I believe you may need a university email. I could be lying about that. Dr. McClendon, please correct me in chat if I'm wrong about that. But you can apply today. You actually don't have to apply. Sorry, I said that wrong. You just register, you make your account, and you can get started right away. So you get in the platform, all the credentials are listed for you. You can start searching through them, looking for what you want to enroll into, and you'll start your class right away. So you get into like a 3 hour course, it's got a module set up. It's very self guided, very asynchronous, and very, very easy. So I definitely recommend it. Hop on there. I don't know if the link is anywhere, but I can send the link if needed. But yeah, it's completely free, all free. I should definitely stress that free, free, free to use.
Perfect. Thank you. We also have some folks who are curious about which grad school you're going to. Do you want to
Ooh.
share?
I haven't decided yet.
Okay.
I'm looking in New York area, New York City area. So NYU is the top of my list, but I haven't decided. So still options are open.
Yes, fingers crossed for you. Okay, Trey, we have some questions about demonstrating some of the things that you have shared about, communicating your skills, your eagerness to learn, but also some kind of spicy takes from a recruiter perspective. What are your thoughts on cover letters? Do you think they're necessary?
Ooh. I go back and forth on cover letters, if I'm being honest. I think at this stage of your career, I would say yes. Like if you're 10 years in, 15 years in, do I need to read your cover letter? No, it's probably not going to tell me anything that your resume doesn't already tell me. But like starting out your careers, you're looking for any opportunity to stand out. Like I said, it's an opportunity to kind of once again highlight your skills. But also I think the other thing too is like to connect, to draw those connecting threads between what you've done, how you would leverage it in this role, to highlight why you want to take this job, why you want to work at this company. Like I said, the purpose, the enthusiasm can go a really long way. I think people don't put as much weight into that as they should at times. So yeah, take some time, but don't. The worst thing that you can do is to come up with a very generic cover letter that you attach to every single job and you just fire out like 100 at a time. It should be a customized cover letter for this specific job for this specific company.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, James, we have more questions for you. We have a question that says, can you tell us your best practices for balancing schoolwork, work, upskilling, and a social life?
I don't know if I'm the best person to ask. To be honest, I'm still trying to balance it still. I think it's time management, usually probably the biggest thing. Laying out, whether it be like the next week, like next month, whatever it is, making sure it's clear what you have to do when it's due, and then working towards things a little bit at a time. I think the big mistake I probably made, I didn't really explain it, but I started at Clarkland University, transferred to Georgia Tech. That transfer process, I think the mistake that I made a lot of times was I kind of just waited until a couple of days before everything was due to do it. And it starts to add up when they give you 10 assignments at the beginning of the semester, and then you're trying to do 10 assignments at the end instead of having, split up one a week for 10 weeks. So definitely split things up as you can. Use your resources being professors, mentors, other students, I guess now AI, but figuring out whatever you need to do to make sure you can learn on the education side. And then ideally, once you have the education kind of settled, the social life just kind of opens up because now you're not stressed about this exam you have to take. You already know what's going to be on it. You know that you understand what you need to understand. You're not going out and worrying about that the whole time. So that's the best advice I could give right now. Really, I'm still trying to figure it out. So I think we all kind of are a little bit.
It's a journey. Yes, for sure. And you did just drop one of the magic terms for a question that I want to pose to both of you. This is from Anthony, which is, how does someone go about finding or choosing a mentor? James, you just mentioned that you have a mentor. And I know that you mentioned that the IBM SkillsBuild program was a way that you kind of secured that mentorship. Can you talk a little bit about that process and give any tips there?
Yeah, I've gotten pretty lucky with my mentors throughout the years. My main mentor, Dr. Olatidoye, I'm sure he's on the call right now. But he was my professor. So he's an engineering professor at Clark. He taught me engineering graphics, intro to engineering, really the basics that gave me like the basis to go off of. And I think that when I was in his class, I kind of just showed the skills that I had and the interest that I had in the fields that I was looking to be in. And I think he saw that. So based on that, he started getting me involved. But making it clear to the professors, making it clear to advisors, whoever really it is at a university or in whatever setting you're in, what you're interested in. Because that way, when they see something that's related to it, they'll know to contact you immediately. So there's a computer science thing happening, to reach out to me, software thing, to reach out to me, what I mean, that kind of thing. So just make it clear what you're doing, kind of brand yourself in that way, and to be associated from there. But then, of course, things like the mentorship program with IBM, because that's something where you're directly added to something, like you're directly matched with somebody. So you don't have to do like the networking work too much there. I know a lot of people kind of, I don't want to say shy, but maybe reluctant to make that network. This kind of forces you to. And then a lot of the times through that one to one, you'll build that network automatically and then you can just build your relationship from there. So I think most people in the program end up talking to their mentors for years down the line, and really just keeping relationships, reaching out via email, texting, whatever you got to do to keep in contact, I would say.
Thank you. Awesome. Trey, do you have anything that you would want to add on mentorship before we wrap up in our last minute here? This time has flown.
I would just say, keep in mind that the mentor themselves also has a full-time job. They've got their own things they're worried about. So when you approach someone, it's important to kind of indicate why you've chosen this person, what it is about them that you hope to learn from, how you think they can help you, what you want like the terms of that engagement to look like. I think the more that you can do to kind of drive a little bit of that, and they'll work with you to do it, right? You'll kind of come to some sort of understanding mutually. But don't just say, I want you to be my mentor, because that's unlikely to go well, right? So like have some sort of reasoning behind it that you can talk through with them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Help them help you. by being clear in your ask. Thank you both so much. This time really flew. We got a ton of great questions. We weren't able to get to all of them, but I promise I will be sharing these questions with the SkillsBuild team. I will be taking these questions, turning them into some content in the future, so please be on the lookout. Before we go, don't forget to use the links in the chat to register for SkillsBuild today, and follow both IBM SkillsBuild and Handshake on Handshake to learn more about future events like this one. We'll also share these links tomorrow via email, so check your inboxes. Plus, if you want more goodness from IBM specifically about the tech world, they're having another virtual event today in just a couple of hours, their Tech Talk series. You can find that link in the chat, featuring insights about industry from pros in tech. So it's not too late to register. If you want more goodness from IBM, head over there. These links, along with today's recording, will be in your email inbox tomorrow morning. So thank you very much. With that, everybody have a great rest of your week. Thank you so much for your time and attention today. And thank you, James and Trey, for everything you shared with us today.
Thank
Bye.
you.
You.